guys, I'm here today to do a slightly delayed top 5 Wednesday. They posted them a little bit late, and I was at a Lee Bardugo signing yesterday, so apologies for the delay. But the theme this week is books that you would like classes formed around. They did ask in the thing not to choose Harry Potter because there are so many classes about Harry Potter. So I'm going to choose books that are not like it, but know that I think that Harry Potter classes are great and I love a deep dive into that source material. So Harry Potter is a given, but let's explore some other ones. The first one that immediately came to mind is basically the whole entire canon of Rick Riordan, like any of his mythology based stuffs. I'm going back to school to be a theater teacher, and I've actually contemplated doing an entire Greek mythology unit in every single class that I teach because I think it would be so fascinating to basically have kids read the myths and then read a Rick Riordan novel or parts of a Rick Riordan novel and see how they compare and contrast to the characterizations and the characters, and then encourage students to either like write their own short stories or write their own concepts for our novels and use and bring other mythologies in that Rick Riordan hasn't touched. I could see this as both for students in like a classroom or college level or high school. I just think there's so much material to work with in Rick Riordan's world, and I would be really impressed to see some curriculum syllabuses. Hopefully when I have my own classroom, I'll be able to implement some of these strategies into my own classroom, but these are definitely some of the first units I would try to implement because they just sound so much fun and they really get the brain juices flowing and just some creativity. Like maybe we can make little plays based around the stories that they come up with. So that's my idea for the first class I would try to enact in my own classroom or hopefully see other people enact as well. The next class isn't really around a specific book series, but it's just kind of about book tropes in general, and I would say breaking the trope. That's what I would call it, and it would be basically taking YA novels in various genres, like fantasy, maybe a paranormal, maybe a contemporary, maybe dystopian, and kind of really reading through the novels and then enacting like what tropes did you notice, how did the story like subvert the tropes or how did they fall into the tropes, and how could you take a trope that was used and maybe subvert it. And I always think that that is so cool to really look at like tropes in novels because they're so popular. Girl gets, for example, a trope would be boy finds girl, boy and girl get together. So one of the characters does something complicated and they break up and then at the end they get back together. That's kind of like a trope, and that's where a lot of romantic books kind of follow that premise. But I would love to see like a class really dissect like how you could make a book subvert the tropes. So that's just like a general class idea. I would love to see that. I'm sure that they do that in like YA literature classes, but to really have a book that like subverts it, I think that that would be kind of cool. So breaking the tropes is what I would call it, and I would really just have to do it a bunch of different YA literature novels, and having them explore and maybe at the end write a paper about what they learned about tropes. You can really tell that I'm a teacher. The next one is kind of a new one. I just read this series over the last year, and that's Tamora Pierce. Tamora Pierce is an author that has 5 series, and they're all set in the world of Tortall, and that she's like 20, I think she has a lot of books, some of them are like 3. I read this series over the course of a year, and it blew me away. I really loved it, and I would love to do a deep dive, not only into like the world of Tortall, because I think her world building is like spectacular, but also the various female characters that we meet and how different they are. Every book has a lead female, and they are just so different. I love learning about them all. I'm just learning about the undertones that are really in all the books about there's political stuff, there's male and female gender relationships, and I think especially in 2017 there is a lot of elements we could take and apply to our real lives. But I would love a deep dive into not only Tortall but also into Tamora Pierce and how her feminist attitude really did impact these novels and how it created basically a generation of little girls that knew that they wanted to fight and what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go. So I think just an exploration of not only the world but also the impact of this world on culture would be really, really cool if you were doing like an upper level course. But overall, I just think that it would just be really cool to explore it on like an academic level and see the impact of her world building and also the various characters that we meet in all the series and how they are all compared and contrasted to each other. Again, that sounds like a really cool class that I would love to take and or create. I came up with a really cool title for this one. So it's YA Dystopian, exploring tropes, worlds, and the impact on our lives. I kind of started thinking about this because when I was in college, the first time I was in college, YA Dystopian flooded the market. There was all you can read. There was Divergent, there was Hunger Games, there was Maze Runner, so many dystopian novels. And I just would love to like look at like the elements that basically created the dystopian world and then what tropes were used to do that. And now looking back now, what impact did these stories have on their fans? Sometimes dystopian novels don't end the way people expect them to, and it causes a lot of feedback and about our lives and also in reference to the authors. And I would just love to explore that dynamic. Um, there's one particular series I'm thinking of, and if you're a YA fan, you know which one I'm talking about. Divergent. I would love to especially explore the trajectory of that fan base and also what tropes did they subvert and why was it such a dangerous thing to do and why people were so angry about it. I was not on that side. I think I talked about this before, but I would love to explore that in a classroom setting and also see like what other tropes the other novels fell into or fell out of. And I just really, really think that's fascinating. I also think it's really interesting to explore the fact that in most dystopian novels, a female is at the lead and it's not a male. And I think that's another thing to explore. But yeah, that's my general idea for another class. Again, I really want to create all these classes, guys. This is just dangerous. The last one I'm going to talk about is another general class. I was having a hard time picking like worlds to put like books to focus on, but this is the diversity spotlight, I would say. And I would really create a class and I would have it be like two parts probably where I would read some typical YA novels that are written by white authors and then I would take a couple from diversity. And that would be a majority of the class where we would really just compare and contrast, like, what are the different elements that are explored in these books. And I really think it's so important in this class to find diverse novels that are not contemporaries because that is what has flooded the market recently. But that's, just because you want to read about diversity in your everyday life, why can't it exist in other worlds? And that's just something that I'm a big proponent of. And I think that diversity is so important. Every child or every young adult or every adult who's reading young adult literature should be able to pick up a book and they should find someone that looks like them in any genre, not just contemporary, any genre. And you should be able to see a world, even just see yourself in a story and see them having adventures. It's all about escapism, and I think escapism is sometimes harder to do if you're not represented in the story. I read so many novels where I'm not represented, but some of my favorite books to go back to is where I just can pretend I'm the lead. And I want to really discuss about diversity issues and maybe have like um, maybe the final paper will be give us the class a presentation about your favorite diverse author and then give you a summary and I don't know, just an idea. This tag was so much fun. I'm starting teaching high school next week for student teaching and I'm really excited. I don't know I'll get to do any of these ideas, but one day I hope to include some of these in my own theater classroom because they seem really, really fun. Let me know what class below you'd want to take if I created it. And go on my blog and give me some of your class ideas that you would do if you had the opportunity to create a YA inspired class. But I hope you guys are having a great day and I'll talk to you guys later.